I was holding a mug of peppermint cocoa when the phone rang. I almost didn't pick up. It was a week before Christmas, and the call was from my mother. But something in me still hoped, still believed maybe this year would be different. I answered with more cheer than I felt. "Hi, Mom. I was just about to wrap your gift." There was a pause. Then she said it, calmly, coldly, like she was confirming a hair appointment. "Don't come for Christmas this year, Sabrina. It'll be better for everyone." The mug slipped slightly in my hand, peppermint foam catching on my wrist. "Excuse me?" I asked, stunned. "Things have been tense. Tyler feels judged, and your father's been stressed. We thought a quiet Christmas without any drama would be best." That word, drama, had always been their way of dismissing anything they didn't want to talk about. Disagreement, drama. Boundaries, drama. Honesty, definitely drama. Before I could respond, another voice chimed in. "No hard feelings, right?" It was my brother, Tyler. "We'll just pretend we don't know you this year. Maybe next year when you're normal again." He chuckled like it was a joke. I didn't hang up. I couldn't. My mother sighed in the background. "Sabrina, be reasonable. It's just one Christmas." That night, I sat in my Philadelphia condo alone, surrounded by wrapped gifts and half-lit garlands, wondering what I'd done to deserve being erased like that. I had requested time off from work, picked out presents with care, including a rare 1960s lure for Dad's fishing collection, and even bought the cookies Mom always forgot she liked until she saw them on a plate. I wasn't just uninvited. I was discarded. I told myself I'd be fine, that I'd spend the day in fuzzy socks watching old movies and pretending I hadn't been exiled from my own family. I opened a bottle of red, curled under a blanket, and told myself it was their loss. Then, 2 days later, as I was eating reheated pad thai in front of It's a Wonderful Life, my phone rang again. Unknown number. I let it ring once, twice, and then answered. "Is this Sabrina Holloway?" The voice was male, firm, older. "Yes," I replied cautiously. "My name is Benjamin Crane. I'm an attorney with Crane and Mullins in Harrisburg. I'm calling regarding the estate of Beatrice Holloway." The name punched the air from my lungs. "My grandmother," I said, voice trembling. "She passed away 5 years ago." "No, Miss Holloway," he said gently. "According to our records, she passed on November 12th of this year." I stood up, so fast my knee knocked over the mug on the coffee table. "That can't be right. I would have known there would have been a funeral." "I understand this must come as a shock," he said, his tone calm but serious. "I believe it would be best if we spoke in person. Are you available to come to our offices this week?" I nodded before I remembered. He couldn't see me. Yes, I'll come." After the call ended, I sat there in silence. My grandmother was gone, and no one told me. Not my mother, not my father, not even Tyler. I reached for my phone, scrolling through old texts, old photos, birthdays, garden days, watercolor afternoons. Grandma B had been the one person who truly saw me, who called just because she missed my voice, who remembered which kind of jam I liked. And now she was gone. The thing is, in my heart, I had already lost my parents a long time ago. They just hadn't made it official until that phone call. But my grandmother, Beatrice Holloway, had been the last true string tethering me to that bloodline. Now it was severed, and something told me that call from the lawyer was only the beginning. The train ride from Philadelphia to Harrisburg the next morning was quiet, too quiet. I watched trees blur past the window, brown branches clawing at a gray sky. In my lap, I clutched a folder I'd thrown together last minute, just in case the lawyer needed anything. I wasn't sure what I expected to find at the law firm or what I feared. The receptionist led me into a glass-walled conference room, tastefully minimalist. A tall man in a navy suit entered moments later, a leather folder in his hands and weariness behind his eyes. "Miss Holloway," he said, extending a hand. "I'm Benjamin Crane. Thank you for coming. Just tell me, I said, folding my coat over the chair. Is this about a will? He nodded. Yes. Your grandmother updated her estate plan 3 years ago and named you as the primary beneficiary. My breath caught. But my family? They didn't say anything. No call, no funeral invitation, nothing. Crane opened the folder and slid a death certificate across the table, followed by a brief obituary. My name wasn't mentioned. I didn't exist. I don't understand, I whispered. Why would they keep this from me? He removed his glasses, setting them down slowly. Because they contested the will, Ms. Holloway. Right after her passing, they claimed she wasn't of sound mind when she made the changes. I stared at him. That's a lie. Grandma was sharp as ever last year. We spoke every other week. Which is why the court dismissed their petition, he said. There were videos. Videos. He nodded, turned his laptop toward me and pressed play. The screen flickered, then came to life with the familiar glow of sunlight pouring into a small sunroom. And there she was, my grandmother, Beatrice Holloway, her hair whiter, her frame smaller, but her voice was strong. Sabrina, she said, looking directly into the lens. If you're watching this, it means I've passed. I've left instructions with Benjamin to reach you because I don't trust your parents to do it. She smiled sadly. You always deserved better. I should have said more when I was alive. But I want you to know I saw everything. The favoritism, the guilt trips, the cold dismissals. I saw what they did to you. My throat tightened as her voice filled the room. You built a life on your own terms, and they resented you for it. I've left the house to you, the investments, the keepsakes. It's all yours, darling. I've also revoked the power of attorney I gave your mother years ago. She's been borrowing against the house without telling me. I've asked Benjamin to investigate. You deserve to know the truth. The video ended. I was crying, though I hadn't realized it. She knew, I whispered. She really knew. Crane nodded. There are more videos. She recorded several over the course of 2 years, documenting her decisions, her mental state, and her intentions. It left the court with little doubt. I sat back, the world tilting slightly under me. They knew she left it to me, and they still didn't tell me she died. They held the funeral the same week they contested the will, he said. And we tried to reach you, but your mother told our office you'd moved overseas. It wasn't until our investigator found your current address that I was able to call you. I covered my face with my hands. They erased me, I said. They held a funeral without me and pretended I was gone. The house is still in probate, but it will transfer to your name soon. The investment accounts total approximately $600,000. There are personal belongings as well, though some items were removed from the property before the court sealed it. We're compiling a list. Images rushed through my mind. The photos on Facebook, Caroline Denton arranging flowers in Grandma's kitchen. The missing antique table, Tyler's Rolex, the living room that no longer looked like hers. They had gone through her home, like it was theirs, like I didn't exist. I looked up at the lawyer, my voice steadier than I expected. What happens next? That depends on you, Ms. Holloway, he said. There are legal options to recover what's missing, and to hold certain parties accountable. But emotionally, that's your call. I nodded slowly. I wasn't sure what I would do yet, but I knew one thing. I was done pretending that silence was kindness. I stepped out of the law office into a bright winter afternoon, but the air felt sharp and disorienting. I wasn't just grieving my grandmother now. I was grieving an entire reality I thought I understood. My parents hadn't simply failed me. They had intentionally erased me, while throwing a funeral for the woman who had loved me most in the world. That night I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying the video of Grandma B, her eyes filled with warmth and sorrow, telling me she saw what they had done. I scrolled through my camera roll, then over to Instagram, and that's when the pieces started clicking into place. There she was, Caroline Denton, posing with a tray of cookies in my grandmother's kitchen like she'd always belonged there. In the next post, she was opening a gift for my mother. In another, she raised a glass of champagne in what used to be the dining room, the same room where I'd once made watercolor cards with Grandma when I was 7. I zoomed in on the background. The antique side table that used to hold Grandma's pressed flower lamp? Gone. Replaced by something cold and modern. Her cozy plaid armchair, where she'd sip tea and call me darling girl, vanished, replaced by sleek leather. The changes weren't just cosmetic, they were strategic. And Tyler, in the third photo, he held up a Rolex. I knew my family. I knew their finances. My parents had always claimed they were budgeting for retirement, clipping coupons, and driving old cars. But in the last few months, I'd seen a new SUV in the driveway, weekend trips to Maine, a new flat screen mounted in the den, and now a Rolex? Grandma had mentioned loans taken out against the house. Could it be they'd started spending before she was even gone? The more I scrolled, the worse it got. I pulled up Facebook and reread the Christmas post from my mom. So grateful for this peaceful holiday with family and dear friends. Caroline, you are a treasure. A treasure right in my seat. I called Natalie the next morning. She picked up mid-yawn, still in her robe. Please tell me you're calling with gossip, not grief, she mumbled. It's both, I replied. They buried Grandma. Didn't tell me. Replaced me with Caroline Denton. And now I think they've been stealing from her before she died. Silence. Then, Jesus, Sabrina. I paced the kitchen. They contested the will. They lost. And they told the court I'd moved out of the country. Natalie was wide awake now. Have you talked to them since the call? No. I haven't responded to any of their messages. But it's coming. You realize this isn't just emotional betrayal, she said quietly. This could be financial fraud. I know, I said, staring at the granite countertop that suddenly felt unfamiliar. And the worst part, I almost believed their version of me. The dramatic one. The difficult one. The daughter who never tried. Natalie's voice softened. You tried more than anyone. You were the glue. And when you stopped stretching yourself thin, they snapped. I sat down slowly. I'm not just angry, Nat. I'm haunted by every time I doubted myself because they told me I was overreacting. She exhaled on the line. You ready to stop doubting now? I was quiet for a long time, then nodded. Yes. Later that day, I pulled out an old notebook from my desk drawer. Inside were the records I'd kept from calls with Grandma. Little notes about books she liked, flowers she planted, the birthdays she remembered without reminders. I found one line, scribbled from a call 3 months ago. Your mom was asking about your legal name again. Middle initial or full? Can't remember which one was on that old deed from the lake house. I hadn't thought much of it at the time, but now I felt like she'd been trying to tell me something. They weren't just hiding her death. They were hiding what they did before she died. 2 days later, I was back in the conference room at Crane and Mullins. Benjamin Crane greeted me with the same steady calm as before. But this time he slid a flash drive across the polished table. There are 4 more videos, he said. Your grandmother recorded them in the final year of her life. She asked that you view them privately, but I'll be right outside if you need anything. When he left, I exhaled and clicked play. The screen filled again with soft afternoon light from Grandma's sunroom. She looked even thinner than in the first video, wrapped in a knitted shawl I remembered helping her pick out for her birthday. Sabrina, she said, smiling gently. If you're watching this second recording, it means the first one wasn't enough. I suspected it might not be. That's the thing about the truth. It needs to be repeated to sink in. She leaned forward, her tone sharper now. I want to explain about the house. Years ago, during my hip replacement, I foolishly gave your mother power of attorney. She said it would just be for emergencies. But over time, I learned she'd been borrowing against the property without telling me. Small amounts at first, then more. She paused, her lips trembling slightly. I only discovered the extent of it a few months ago. There were loans I never signed for. Withdrawals I couldn't explain. When I confronted your mother, she called it family necessity. Said Jake, she caught herself, then corrected, said Tyler needed help, and that I wouldn't understand because I was too old-fashioned. I blinked at the screen, rage rising in my chest like boiling water. I revoked the POA the day after, Grandma continued, her voice firmer now. I also rewrote my will, not because I love them less, but because I cannot reward deception. Sabrina, you have always come to me with truth, with time, with kindness. You called me just to hear my voice. You never asked for anything. The second video ended. The third began. This time, Grandma held up a small notebook, her own. I've kept records, she said. Every suspicious transaction. Every item that vanished from this house. The side table? Gone after your mother hosted her church friends. My jewelry box? Half empty since Tyler came by just to check in. They think I'm not paying attention, but I am. She opened a drawer and took out a velvet pouch. This is for you, she said, lifting out her engagement ring. It's not just about value, it's about dignity. This ring has been in our family for 3 generations. Your mother tried to sell it once, said it didn't fit her style. I kept it hidden after that. My hands trembled. That ring had been the one she showed me every Christmas growing up, spinning it slowly on her frail finger as she told stories about Grandpa Will. The final video played. Grandma looked tired but peaceful. By now you'll know everything. They'll be angry, Sabrina. They'll tell lies. They'll paint you as selfish, dramatic, cold. But you're none of those things. You are clear-eyed, and you deserve better. She smiled one last time. Stand firm, my darling girl. You don't owe them what they took. You don't owe them silence. The screen went black. I sat there in the quiet hum of the conference room, barely breathing. When Benjamin Crane re-entered, he didn't say anything at first, just placed a thick envelope on the table. Court records. Full documentation of the house's liens, the bank loans, the misuse of the POA. Also, a list of items removed from the property. I flipped it open. Antique furniture, jewelry, art pieces, books, even family heirlooms, all either missing or transferred illegally before the will went into effect. They cleaned her out, I said, my voice hollow, before she was even cold. He nodded solemnly. We've already moved to freeze any remaining accounts tied to your grandmother's estate. There's also a potential case for financial exploitation of an elder. I stared at the document listing the Rolex, the BMW, the mortgage payments, all connected to my parents and Tyler. And what do I do now? I whispered. Benjamin looked me in the eye. That depends. You can press charges or not. You can reclaim the items, recover damages, even go public if needed. But more than that, you can choose what comes next for you. I closed the envelope slowly. I didn't know yet if I'd pursue the legal path. But one thing was clear. They hadn't just tried to erase me from Christmas. They'd tried to erase me from the family entirely, and they almost got away with it. The invitation came by text 2 days later. From my mother, of course. Polite, polished, poisonous. Sunday brunch at the Hilton in Lancaster. Just to talk. Neutral ground. I stared at the message like it was written in another language. After months of silence, after erasing me from Grandma's funeral and the family Christmas, they wanted to talk. Benjamin Crane advised against going. They'll try to manipulate you, he warned. They'll cry. They'll guilt you. They'll rewrite the story while you're sitting at the table. But I needed to see their faces. I needed to hear the lies from their mouths to believe just how far they were willing to go. So I told him I'd go, but he was to wait in the hotel lobby on standby. Sunday morning came cold and gray. I arrived early, seated myself at a corner table in the Hilton's sunlit restaurant, and ordered black coffee with shaking hands. The smell of fresh waffles drifted past, but my stomach was a knot. At 11 sharp they entered. My mother in a beige trench coat, her lipstick too bright. My father behind her, older than I remembered, like regret had finally begun to etch lines into his face. And Tyler, wearing a smug little grin and a brand new jacket that probably cost more than my monthly rent. "Sabrina," Mom said with a forced smile as they sat down. "You look well." I said nothing. I kept my hands wrapped around the coffee cup, grounding myself in its quiet heat. "We're here to clear the air," Dad said gently, reaching for my hand. I pulled it away. Tyler leaned back, arms crossed. "Yeah, let's get to the part where you give back what Grandma meant for the family." I turned my eyes to him. She did leave it to the family. I'm her family. Mom's lips tightened. Beatrice wasn't thinking clearly. Those videos? Who knows what kind of things she was fed? "She made those recordings before she revoked the POA," I said calmly. "She knew what you were doing. She listed every transaction, every item, every lie." Dad cleared his throat. "Libby, things got complicated. We never meant to hurt you. You just forgot to invite me to her funeral? Told a lawyer I'd moved overseas? Spent her money before she was gone." "Don't be dramatic," Tyler snapped. "You were never around. You didn't see what we went through taking care of her." I laughed, short and bitter. Taking care of her? Or taking from her? "Enough," Mom hissed, glancing at nearby tables. "Let's not make a scene." "No need. This is your scene, you cast it. I'm just saying my lines." "We can fix this," Dad said quickly. "Split the inheritance fairly. Keep the house in the family." "Fairly," I echoed. "Like how you fairly gave Tyler a BMW while Grandma lived on grocery store lasagna. Like how you fairly erased me from the obituary." Mom's voice dropped. "Sabrina, you've always been independent. Strong. We thought you didn't need what Tyler did." "You mean I didn't demand what he did?" Tyler slammed his palm on the table, rattling the silverware. "You think you're so much better than us. That's always been your problem." I stared at him. What exactly did I get handed, Tyler? The scholarship I earned? The job I clawed my way into? The apartment I bought after working 16-hour days? Silence. Mom composed herself. "We all made mistakes. But if you don't want to destroy this family, you'll reconsider." I stood, calm now, the fury finally burning clean. "You already destroyed it when you lied to me about the one person who truly loved me." Dad looked stricken. "Please, let's talk more. We can work this out." "I'll have my lawyer contact you," I said, stepping back. "About the furniture, the jewelry, and the loans. All of it." Mom's voice cracked. "If you do this, don't expect to be welcomed back." I paused at the edge of the table, then turned to her. "You already told me not to come home for Christmas, Mom. I think we're well past welcome." And with that, I walked out. I didn't cry in the parking lot. I thought I would, but I didn't. Instead, I sat in my car with the heat blasting and watched the Hilton's revolving doors spin behind me, feeling a strange, quiet stillness settle over everything. The kind of stillness that comes not from peace, but from clarity. I called Benjamin Crane as soon as I got home. "We move forward," I told him. "No more talking. No more brunches. I want everything documented, everything protected." He didn't hesitate. "Understood. I'll file formal notices regarding asset recovery and begin drafting cease and desist letters related to any defamatory statements. We'll also prepare to reclaim the personal property and address the misuse of your grandmother's estate." What followed was relentless. Over the next few weeks, my inbox flooded with notifications. Tyler had shown up at my office building, screaming obscenities in the lobby until security escorted him out. My mother posted a vague status on Facebook, something about children who destroy their families chasing money and her church friends swarmed it with praying hands and broken heart emojis. I received messages from extended family, some cautiously neutral, others not so much. Aunt Cheryl called to say I was breaking my mother's heart. Cousin Ryan texted, "Did you really cut them out over money?" Only Aunt Iris said what I needed to hear. "I always suspected Beatrice knew what she was doing. Don't let them gaslight you, sweetheart." I wanted to block them all. Instead, I opened a blank email and sent one sentence to Benjamin: "File the restraining order." We moved swiftly: a protection order against Tyler, a cease and desist against my mother and father, a formal letter demanding the return of personal property taken from the house, including the side table, the antique books, and the painting Grandma had always said would be mine someday. Through all of it, I tried to work. I really did. But my team noticed. My creative direction was off. I missed deadlines. I left meetings halfway through. Eventually, my boss pulled me into her office, shut the door, and said simply, "Take time. We've got this." The kindness broke something loose in me. I walked out of her office and sat in the bathroom stall, sobbing into my scarf like a woman unraveling thread by thread. Natalie was the one who helped me stitch it back together. She started screening my calls, blocking numbers, leaving care packages at my door, and most of all reminding me who I was. "You're not wrong," she whispered over tea one night. "You're just the first one who stopped lying." Therapy helped too. I started seeing a woman named Dr. Estelle Chen, who listened to me talk about guilt and legacy and grief, and never once asked why I didn't just go home. "Would you want contact with them again if they changed?" she asked during one session. I stared at the ceiling for a long time. "I don't even know who they are anymore," I whispered. She nodded. "That's grief talking. Not just for your grandmother, but for the version of family you thought you had." Those words echoed inside me for days, because it was true. I wasn't just mourning Grandma B. I was mourning every Christmas card lie, every forced smile in family photos, every time I thought maybe this year they'll see me. But they never did. Only she did. Only Grandma. So I poured my grief into something real. With Benjamin's help, I began the paperwork to establish the Beatrice Holloway Foundation, focused on educational grants for young women from rural backgrounds, especially those who, like me, had been overlooked in favor of someone louder, needier, or more charming. It wasn't charity. It was reclamation. This was how I would honor her. This was how I would survive. By spring, the smear campaign had slowed. Tyler's messages stopped after the restraining order was served. My parents' Facebook posts grew quieter. Their lawyer began corresponding through Benjamin instead of passive-aggressive emails. And I began breathing again. Not deeply, not all the way, but for the first time in months, the air no longer tasted like ash. By April, Boston thawed. So did I. Benjamin introduced me to a financial advisor named Karen Liu, a sharp, no-nonsense woman who reviewed the numbers of my inheritance like she was studying battlefield logistics. "The house is still valuable," she said, tapping her screen, "but the loans they took out against it have eaten away a good chunk. The good news is your grandmother invested with long-term stability in mind. Mutual funds, municipal bonds, nothing flashy, very her. We built a plan, not just for preservation, but for intention. I didn't want the money to sit idle, or worse, become some cursed relic of pain. So I made decisions. We hired a property manager for Grandma's house in Lancaster. I didn't want to sell it. It still held her scent, her sunlight, but I couldn't live in the same town as my parents either. We turned it into a rental property, and the income helped fund the foundation. I kept only a few items: the pressed flower lamp, the plaid armchair, the kitchen apron she'd embroidered with BEA's Peach Pie Army. Everything else I let go. I launched the Beatrice Holloway Foundation for Educational Equity in May. We awarded our first scholarships to 5 first-generation college students. When I signed those letters, I felt something shift inside me, like a window opened in a room that had been locked for years. One afternoon in early June, I received an email that stopped me cold. Subject line: Sincere apology from Caroline Denton Sabrina. I owe you an apology. I was invited to your family's Christmas under the belief that you had chosen not to attend due to work stress. Your mother assured me you were fine with the arrangement. I never would have accepted the invitation had I known the truth. More recently, I've discovered they had other reasons for reaching out to me, namely my connections to estate attorneys. I feel used. I'm deeply sorry for my role in this situation, however unintentional. I closed the email and stared at it for a long time. I didn't reply. I didn't need to. I already knew the truth. But now I had confirmation. By July, the final numbers came in. After loan resolutions, legal fees, and asset recovery, my inheritance stood at just over $800,000. I had never seen that many zeros in one place. And yet, the most valuable thing I'd gained wasn't in a bank account. It was in the silence, the boundaries, the nights I slept through without dreaming of arguments. August brought a letter from my father, handwritten, no return address. I'm sorry, Libby, for everything. I don't expect forgiveness, but I do wish you peace. I folded the letter and slid it into a box labeled Unsent Apologies. I didn't cry. Not this time. Fall rolled in with its burnished skies and long shadows. The plaid armchair now sat in my reading nook beside the window. I draped it with one of Grandma's old quilts, and on Saturday mornings I curled there with a mug of coffee and a stack of essays from scholarship applicants. Then came December, 1 year since the call. This time I hosted Christmas. Natalie brought cinnamon rolls and peppermint bark. My co-worker, Sam, brought wine. My therapist, Dr. Chin, sent a card that read, "Healing isn't linear, but your boundaries are a map." Even Eric, the architect I'd met at a nonprofit event, came with homemade cider and the calm presence of someone who asked nothing of me except honesty. As fairy lights twinkled and Nat King Cole's voice filled my apartment, I stirred mulled cider and glanced around the room. Laughter, soft piano music, the hum of belonging. Not the family I was born into, but the one I chose. And in that moment I knew I hadn't just inherited a house, or stocks, or jewelry. I'd inherited freedom. The first snow fell 2 days after Christmas. Thick, soft, silent. I watched it drift past my apartment window while sipping the last of the cider, the mug warming my hands the way my grandmother's voice once warmed a room. A year ago, I had cried through Christmas, wondered if I was the problem, questioned whether setting boundaries meant losing love. Now I knew the truth. Love that punishes your honesty isn't love. Love that demands silence in the face of abuse isn't love. It took losing everything I thought I needed to finally understand what I actually deserved. Peace. Respect. A place where my presence wasn't tolerated, but welcomed. In early January, the foundation received its first handwritten thank you letter from a scholarship recipient, a 17-year-old girl named Kiara, who wrote, "No one in my family thought college was realistic, but your letter made me believe maybe I'm not crazy to dream bigger." I cried reading it, not out of sadness, but recognition. I knew that feeling, of shrinking to fit, of apologizing for your light because it hurt someone else's eyes. In February, I visited Grandma's grave for the first time. I brought her favorite flowers, purple zinnias, and placed the antique ring on my finger, the one she had saved from being pawned. "I used to think I'd never be enough," I whispered to the cold wind. "But you saw me, and now I see myself." The stone was simple. Beatrice Holloway, 1935, 2023. Beloved teacher, gardener, grandmother. I pressed my hand to the stone. "Thank you for choosing me," I said. "Thank you for giving me the kind of love that didn't have conditions." As spring bloomed again, so did I. I stopped explaining my decisions, stopped seeking permission for my boundaries, stopped answering messages that only brought anxiety. I didn't block my parents. I didn't need to. The silence between us had become its own boundary, an ocean I had no desire to cross. There were still moments of grief. Times I'd pass a bakery and remember my mother's cinnamon rolls. A song would come on the radio that my father used to hum. I'd see a woman and son shopping together and feel a pang of something I couldn't name. But those moments didn't own me anymore. Forgiveness came slowly. Not for them. For myself. For the years I twisted myself into someone smaller. For believing their love was something I had to earn. For staying too long at tables where no one saved me a seat. By summer, the foundation expanded. We added mentorship programs, held our first local fundraiser. Natalie gave a speech that left the entire room misty-eyed. Eric and I took a trip to the coast in July. We walked barefoot on the sand, and for the first time in years, I laughed without a single part of me wondering whether someone else was watching, judging, keeping score. I like who you are when no one's expecting you to explain, he said softly. I smiled. So do I. I don't know if my family will ever change. Maybe one day I'll hear that Tyler finally took responsibility, that my father spoke my name with pride again, that my mother realized her grief didn't give her the right to control everyone around her. But if they never do, I'll still be okay, because I'm no longer living for invitations that never come, no longer waiting to be welcomed into a family that built its walls to keep me out. This isn't bitterness. It's clarity. This isn't revenge. It's recovery. I didn't burn bridges. I just stopped walking toward ones that always collapsed beneath me. And the most valuable inheritance my grandmother ever gave me wasn't her house, or her jewelry, or her money. It was the knowledge that my worth isn't measured by people who refuse to see it. So if you're listening to this, and you've ever felt like the outsider in your own family, if you've ever been told you're too much, too cold, too sensitive, too dramatic, let me be the one to say it. You're not. You're just finally telling the truth out loud, and you deserve to be heard.